Welcome to Women in the Arena podcast, the podcast celebrating women doing extraordinary things in plain sight. I'm your host, Audra Egan, and our mission is to elevate the value, strength, and resilience each woman brings to the world. Without further delay, let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome to Season 3 of Women in the Arena podcast. I'm your host, Audra Egan, and thank you so much for being part of this community that celebrates women doing extraordinary things in plain sight. We are celebrating yet another magnificent woman today, so let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so happy to introduce you to my next guest. My next guest is Kristin Durney, and she is the co-founder and executive director for Mental Wellness Unleashed. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Kristin Durney. Kristin, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Audra. It's such a pleasure to be on your show. I'm so excited to be here today.
I am so happy that you're here. Before we dive in and get started, will you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So, Audra, I'm so passionate about mental health, as you mentioned, co-founder of Mental Wellness Unleashed. And I've always been in that space pretty much my whole life, and around emotional intelligence, growth mindset, principles of resilience, things of that nature. And I've really always kind of had a seventh sense intuition. I'm around people, so I have a passion for people. And as far as my personal life, I really have been dedicated to the mental health space. It's really my passion.
Well, there's not nearly enough of resources and individuals that are dedicated to mental health, and that seems to be very prevalent right now. And that leads me to what we're here to discuss, which is resilience. Now, that's a big word, and that means a lot of different things, but we're going to discuss resilience as it comes to surviving and processing and going through life and trauma and things that are happening that are unplanned. So, Kristin, tell us about your experience with resilience and where you've come from to get to where you are right now.
Absolutely. So, I call resilience the nucleus of all mindset traits. And it truly is. So, within my life, I suffered trauma when I was younger, and kind of lived through that, in my life when I was young, into high school, into college. And during my college years, I had some repressed memories just come absolutely like a freight train around the trauma I had experienced. And so I knew at that time that I really needed to get some help with that. I went through a lot of time trying to find the right doctors and, all those types of things, medication and things of that nature. And I finally found an amazing, I call her my angel, cognitive behavioral therapist who I went through years of cognitive behavioral therapy. And what I found was the building of resilience is really the nucleus of everything that we think, we do, our actions, our behaviors. I have a formula for mindset. Our emotions drive our actions that drive our behaviors. So we really have that opportunity when we have adversity to, not only get through change and challenging times, especially now, Audrey, as you mentioned, we've got so much going on. Resilience is really that force, that allows us to be adaptable quickly and effectively and actually become stronger for it.
So let me stop you there and ask for some additional information for those that may have heard about cognitive behavioral therapy and don't really know about it. What is that exactly, and what are the benefits of it?
Absolutely, sure. So cognitive behavioral therapy is taking negative thought patterns, or we call them ants sometimes, they're automatic negative thoughts or talk, and changing that, doing a 180 to positive thought patterns and beliefs. So basically, it's taking your non-reality and changing into your reality. And the beauty of cognitive behavioral therapy is it's allowing you to self-reflect, go deep diving into yourself to say, what am I telling myself that is not true? What are others telling me that is not true? What do I need to do to change these patterns? And once you do this, having tools around this in our coaching programs, it is absolutely, I mean, it transformed my life. It saved my life, honestly. So that's what cognitive behavioral therapy is. And there's a lot of self-reflection in deep diving into your emotions and what you've been through, especially if it's something like a trauma or some kind of adversity, and figuring out, picking that out and saying, what's that negative internal dialogue that I'm having with myself?
So let me see if I understand this correctly. So let's say you hear over and over and over again that you're not good at public speaking. And that's not true, but unfortunately, you just keep hearing that. If you change your thought pattern of you are good at public speaking and you start telling yourself that over and over and over again, it changes your confidence and it changes your perspective. Am I understanding that right, or am I oversimplifying it?
No, look, you're spot on. And in fact, I'll give an example, and I'll give a little bit of research behind this too. Very interesting in terms of the science behind it, because there is research that literally shows the neurotransmitters in your brain. You can retrain your brain as a muscle it is. They become stronger, which actually affects hippocampus in your motivation and thought process, which is your prefrontal cortex. Actually changes the chemistry of your brain. And there's a huge mind to body connection too. So actually, when we're doing this, we're changing our thought patterns and we're becoming positive and starting to climb into a growth mindset. It helps our physicality as well. And so, for instance, an example to what you just said, I actually had a client that was very introverted, and they thought because they were introverted, they would never be a good public speaker. Now,
Wow.
yes. And now, I loved your example, because now that person, that's what they do for a living.
Oh my goodness, that
Mm-hmm.
completely changed their life.
I mean, literally, I mean, they said it changed their life. I mean, they said personally, professionally speaking, it just changed their whole it was a transformation, metamorphing. I mean, they're morphing into who they really were.
So this therapy is literally creating new neuroconnections in your brain that allows you to transform not only your thoughts, but because thoughts are things, it will change your actions, your behavior, and then therefore your life.
Absolutely. And you start to really, and I mean this, you start to really live your potential, your best self. You start to really find out, what is my purpose? What am I capable of doing? I'm going to get out of my comfort zone. I mean, there's all these different wonderful things that happen when you're transforming into who you really are, and owning your truth, owning the value, what you're worth. And it really it changed my life to the point where I became so interested in mindset that I researched it, and I've been researching for years. And there's someone by the name of Carol Dweck who wrote a book, who did research for 30 years on this exact thing, and talked about, and she's a Stanford professor, and talked about emotional intelligence and how that relates to growth mindset and how that relates to resiliency and adaptability. And when we have resilience, we can start to grow that mindset change, and those neurotransmitters literally chemically change in our brain. And then you're starting to have that wonderful positive mind and body connection that releases serotonin, dopamine, endorphins. 70% of our serotonin comes from our gut. I used to think, Audra, that having chronic pain and digestive issues was just normal. And everything changed for me.
That is interesting that you say that, because there is definitely a connection for me personally between my level of stress and anxiety
Mm-hmm.
and how my stomach feels. It
Oh,
it there
absolutely.
I will admit that fully. I have a lot of stress, and if I'm very stressed out, I don't feel 100%. So that's interesting that you bring that up, that there's definitely a connection between the emotion and your physicality.
Well, and to add to that, and thank you for actually adding that because I mean, I was diagnosed with PTSD, clinical depression, and clinical anxiety. So I actually manage mine on a daily basis. But what happens when you have anxiety is the stress hormone cortisol just all of a sudden, sort of inflames your body, and it affects your ability to think, to focus. All the physical symptoms of anxiety, nausea, sweaty palms, that whole heart palpitations, all these things that come with anxiety affects our ability to make decisions, affects our life, affects people around us, affects our family, friends, members. I mean, coworkers, everyone they're around. So, anxiety, people don't realize sometimes how much it can affect our lives in terms of just being happy and successful.
So it's really affecting everything without even realizing it, which is why we wanted to talk about these building blocks of resilience. You refer to it as the nucleus, and I know that it is the foundation, but can you tell me a little bit more about resilience as the nucleus of a mindset?
Absolutely. So there's a something called positive psychology, which is actually came about in the 1990s. And one of the pioneers, Dr. Martin Siegelman, actually came up with, well, people that actually studied him came up with 7 principles of resilience. And what this resilience does is it promotes, in order to have resilience and adaptability, which again is becoming stronger from resilience, is based on having a positive self-image, our problem-solving skills, again, adaptability, how we actually not only react to change, but how effectively we do that, how quickly we do that, how we can bounce back quickly from it. Understanding your meaning gives us life's direction. Having those skills and abilities about ourselves that we know, like what are we good at? What are our abilities? What are we reaching for? What gives us meaning and purpose? And then, like self-regulation, regulating our emotions. Our emotions are basically stress activity, and the way that we handle stress lays the foundation for everything else we do. So that emotional intelligence around self-awareness, social awareness, management of relationships, and that self-management of our emotions has everything to do with resilience, because that self-regulation is a way we monitor our emotions.
So is resilience something that you're born with, or is it something that you can acquire and change?
Absolutely. It's a skill that you can acquire. And, people often ask me this question. They're like, well, this person just seems to be resilient just naturally. Well, some people are more resilient than others, but it is an actual skill that can be totally taught and teachable. And, we have tools around this exact thing. And I have a tool that I built that I, to this day, I refer back to. And it's around these 7 principles of resilience. And so it is an absolute skill. In fact, if anything, it's a skill that not only can be sustainable, adaptable, and shareable, meaning you can coach your coworkers, your teams, your family, your friends, your children to be resilient. And once you sustain it, no matter how big or small, Audrey, you can really absolutely get through anything. And I've been through a lot of adversity in my life. So, I've used my resilience, and this is the beauty about resilience. You gain your control and your power back. So you gain your life back, and you gain the ability to control the unknown, because it's coming, right? Life throws us adversity all the time. We're always going through something, right? It's like this pandemic situation. So it's really having that ability to, like I said, the 7 principles that's based off of resilience.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned pandemic, because quite frankly, 2020 has been one heartbreak after the other, after the other, after the other. Help us by giving us some coaching on how we build our resilience, because this seems to be the longest marathon possible this year, and we're not even done with it yet.
Really around these 7 principles, positive self-image, problem solving, what we can do is we describe what is the definition of each one. And then what does that look like? Like, for instance, having a positive outlook in life, it's having gratitude, it's being mindful, it's, you're taking care of our self-care. And then there's drivers around that. So what do we need to drive that? Well, when you're being mindful, you're saying, okay, what am I grateful for? You need to live in the present. Don't live in the past. Don't live in the future of the unknown. And then we can build action plans around that in terms of how are we going to attain a positive outlook. Journal, we're going to use affirmations, we're going to do all different types of things, resources, meditation. I have morning and nightly rituals that I do that absolutely 100% help me, charge my day, get it started in the right direction. And then at night, celebrate your successes for the day. And that, gets you into your subconscious. So when you're sleeping, you wake up refreshed. So there's a lot of different tools and techniques through resilience. And this tool, it's called the Resilience Roadmap. And it literally takes each of these 7 principles, defines them, and it shows us what we need to do to be in that space, then what drives it, and what actions do we take it and resources that we need for that.
Yes, because like I said, this is the longest emotional marathon that I think any of us have been on, and it's collective. We have all collectively been experiencing this all at the same time, which is very different than, you might be experiencing something and I might be experiencing something, and it's all different. Right now, we're all experiencing this together. So I think that we can all get through this together by helping each other. But what I do know is that change is not easy, especially when you're trying to change your own mindset. And because let's face it, thinking negatively is so much easier. It really is. I mean, being able to look at something and just have a negative emotion about it is easier because you're being bombarded with it all the time. What's the easiest place for us to start? What can we do? One thing that we can do every single day that is an easy little baby step that starts just changing those neural pathways into a positive direction.
Oh, thank you for asking. Oh God, I'm so passionate about this. I'm so excited to share. So there's a tool I developed called the 180 tool. And basically what this is you take that negative thought pattern or the negativity in your life, right? And turn it into a positive. So I always tell people when you use this tool, do it in the morning, say it out loud. You want to say the positive, the negative to the positive 3 times a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and then at nighttime. Make it your nightly ritual. Write it down, say it out loud, put it on your phone, say your affirmation or say your positive thought or your belief on your phone, and then listen to it before you go to bed. And this is how you start to do that transformation of your brain, where your neurotransmitters you're training your brain. So it's important to do it habitually every day. It's taking that negativity and turning into that positive thought pattern or belief.
Give me an example of a positive affirmation.
A positive affirmation is something where, for instance, let's say someone feels like they're not adding value, or they're not good enough at something, or good enough as a person, or they're just feeling, that they're not lovable. So you would say things such as, I add value to myself and others. I am lovable. I am loved. I give love. I exert love. I bring in love. So affirmations are things where you're taking something about yourself, or that maybe others have told you, or that you believe about you, and change that and saying, no, it's the opposite. And I think saying it out loud is what makes the difference. A lot of people have that internal dialogue where they're saying things to themselves. And again, like I said before, it becomes a looping situation, and you got to get it. That's why I say looping, because it's a circle. It keeps going and going and going. You got to break that circle. And through affirmations helps promote a growth mindset, which again leads to that transformation in our retraining our brain and the way we look at not just ourselves and others, but the world.
This episode is sponsored by Belleville Capital Management. When you need a friend in the small business arena, reach out to Belleville for your planning, lending, and investment needs. A friendly consultant will help you find the solutions that you are looking for. Belleville Capital Management, a friend to small business. There's 2 things that you said that I think bears repeating. One is say your positive affirmations out loud. And as I was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, I've started this practice, but I don't say them out loud. That's something that I think I need to change in my practice, because I'm not saying it out loud.
It's a game changer when you say them out loud, because what it starts to do, because that internal talk, a lot of people don't even realize they're having negative internal talk. Saying these affirmations about yourself helps you live in the present. And I can't express that enough. There's so much going on in this world right now that people are so concerned about the future, or they're living in the past. Living in the present allows us to be mindful. And those affirmations are so important. So when you say them out loud, it brings you into the present. It's very powerful.
I'm glad that you said that, because what you had said previously was when you start changing your mindset about yourself, you start to change your mindset about the world externally. So it goes just not from you personally, but then how you start to view the world. So tell me a little bit more about that evolution.
One of the things that resilience has certainly taught me is the ability to look at things objectively and logically and not react emotionally. And so when we start to do that for ourselves, then we start to do that for others. So when we own our own truth and value and we feel valued, then we start looking at others and what they're offering as value. And so it starts to help us not be judgmental, be objective, you know, give out that energy and light that's positive. And then we look at the world that way too. So it's almost like a building block. You do it for yourself, then all of a sudden you're looking at others and adding value. And, again, with all the stuff going on in the world right now, we need this more than ever, right? And then you look at the world and say, wow, look at the opportunities out there. Look at the wonderful things that are actually going on. And then we don't concentrate on all this negativity.
Oh my gosh. So wow, 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 wow. So that you just said a big, big thing. So first, what I'm hearing is that once you start to value yourself, you start to value others, and
Absolutely.
then we start to or eliminate and eradicate this negativity and this you against me or us against them. We start to eliminate that from our culture, because if we start to acknowledge value within each other, then we start to see, oh, but you have something really cool to contribute. It's unique. It's different from me. We need that in the world. And conversations start to happen rather than the diversity and just strife and pain that's going on right now.
You said something really important, Audra. I tell you, it's finding the unique value in others. I love when you said that because that's exactly what it is. So when I look at a person or I talk to a person or coaching a person, I'm looking at what value are they adding? What are their strengths? What do they bring to the world? And so many times, people need to be coached towards that because they don't realize that they do have this amazing value to add to the world. With what you're doing, or right now, with this wonderful podcast. I mean, you're adding so much value. I mean, it's amazing. So if you really look at it that way, then you can really start to say, hey, back to the principles. What is my purpose? What is my purpose? What gift am I supposed to be giving to the world?
To bring us all around back to the nucleus of resilience. Like I said, the whole purpose of why Kristin and I wanted to have this conversation is because there's so much going on right now. So much. And the good news is that resilience can be built.
Mm.
And as Kristin has said, you just need to start with one little tiny little change, one little step of the positive affirmations so you can start to change your own mindset. What is another advanced technique that once you start feeling comfortable with, okay, I'm feeling better about myself, I'm feeling good about myself, I'm starting to see the good in others, what's one more advanced skill that you can give us today?
I think there's a couple of different things I could share with that. I think in terms of, valuing others and also with the stress and anxiety we've got going on, I have something called the 4 W's and the 1 H. And what that is when you're in a situation and you're feeling negative about something, or you're just feeling so stressed and you have so much anxiety, ask yourself, why? Why is it happening? When is it happening? What's happening? How is it happening? And this gives you the ability to start controlling that anxiety. And so much of anxiety and stress affects not only our lives, obviously, but others too. It affects relationships and things of that nature. So that's going to, of course, put that negative vibes out to the world where you want to put out positive ones. So that tool is so helpful because it makes you self-reflect. So when we self-reflect and deep dive into ourselves, we can actually start realizing a lot of things about ourselves, which is going to help us with others and, again, the world we live in and perceive it differently.
You have an entire program for coaching, in the event that you can't do this on your own, you don't have to do this on your own. You have an entire coaching program. How would they connect with you if they say, I just need some extra help and please be my coach?
Thanks for saying that, Audra, because people are different in their journey. We always have a journey in life, and people are at different stages. So we definitely have different areas of coaching we can do in terms of coaching and resilience. But we do have a wonderful resilience program, and they can actually find us on www.mentalwellnessunleashed.com, info@mentalwellnessunleashed.com as well. Or if someone wants to just reach out to me personally, I love that. Kristin Durney at mentalwellnessunleashed.com. If they just want to ask a question or just have questions about resilience, I'm open for conversations anytime. I just love to share the value of the nucleus of resilience because we so badly need it right now.
Well, we'll make sure that your contact information is posted. So in the event that people want to get a hold of you and connect with you and learn more about this mental wellness unleashed and learn more about building your resilience, we'll make sure that we have all that contact information available for everyone. Before we end, I first want to say, Kristin, thank you for investing so much of yourself, your entire life actually, into this mental health and wellness, because there's not nearly enough of those resources to go around. And we are desperate for guidance and coaching and information because this life is only getting harder and harder. And thank you for bringing to the forefront that mental health is important and that it can be improved. So thank you for your work. I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Audra. It is so important. And I these are lived, I've lived this. I don't just coach it and train it. I live it. These are experiences, lived experiences. And it's, mental health is so important. We all have it. We all have mental health, and we all need to really look at ensuring that our mental health is in good shape, and that we can handle the stress and anxiety that's going on right now. So yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me on here because I am so passionate about mental health, and I live it, eat, and breathe it.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us that. Again, dedicating so much of your life to mental health and improving it and giving us your time today. I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for having me, Audra. Really, really so glad to be on here and be able to share all this information. And thanks for what you're doing.
Well,
Very
thank
powerful.
you. Thank you. And I appreciate you being a guest and helping me change the world one interview at a time, because that's my goal.
Thanks so much, Audra.
Thank you all so much for your time today. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next time. That's our show. I want to send a special thank you out to our guests for being so generous with their experiences and their stories, as well as our sponsors so they can allow us to continue to tell these stories. I also want to say a special, special thank you to all of you, this community that we have been building one person at a time so we can endeavor to change the world one interview at a time. I could not do any of this without your support, and for that, I am forever grateful. I look forward to doing this again, so we'll see you all next week.
just the beginning.
That's our show. I am so grateful for each and every one of you and your unwavering support and your continued belief in this movement that has become much bigger than me, much bigger than just a podcast. It has become this forward momentum that we are all doing together. If you are ready, or you know somebody that is ready to tell your story and share your value with the world, please connect with me. You can reach me at audra@womeninthearena.net. I am so honored and thankful that you will share your story with me, and I'll make sure that it is well taken care of. I will never stop thanking each and every one of you, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next week as we share another woman's story and we celebrate her doing extraordinary things in plain sight. We'll see you next time.